Hey, welcome to the Larson Health Podcast. I'm Kim Larson. I'm your host. So, we're going to be talking today about why you're hungry an hour after eating and foods that keep you full for hours. So, if you eat a big bowl of pasta with a side of garlic bread, yum, right? But then 90 minutes later, you're like standing in front of the fridge, like you haven't eaten all day. You're hungry again. Then on a different day, you eat a smaller meal, maybe 6 ounces of salmon, maybe a cup of broccoli, and half an avocado, and you're satisfied for 5, 6 hours. Same amount of effort, same feeling of I just ate, totally different outcome. And I want to talk about why. That's what we're digging into today. So it's the actual biology of hunger, this ghrelin and leptin, and everybody's on GLP-1s today. And it's miraculous how much people are losing weight. But literally, if you just eat protein, vegetables with lots of fiber, not the canned kind, get the whole kind, and then eat some avocado, some extra virgin olive oil, nuts and seeds. These are all healthy fats for you. So I want to talk about why some foods switch, that hunger on within the hour and why others keep it quiet, clear through, dinner time. So once you see this mechanism, you'll start to recognize it in every meal you eat, and it changes literally how you build a plate. So I keep seeing this one guy that I'm connected to in social media, and he'll have a plastic bowl with spaghettios or some kind of pasta, and it has some kind of gross kind of gravy or cheesy, some kind of whatever on it. And it's all highly processed and it's in plastic. And I've done podcasts about plastic and all the toxins of plastics in our bodies. It is just, I keep telling him, and he's like, no, I don't have anything. And I know he's lying because all that stuff causes heart disease, arthritis, prediabetes or diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, all kinds of problems. So I want to look at this like in a very measurable biology behind why we get hungry when we do. We're going to talk about blood sugar, a couple of hormones you've probably heard of a few times, or maybe you haven't, and why fiber, protein, and quality fats like avocado, extra virgin olive oil, and nuts and seeds are quietly some of the most powerful hunger control tools you have. And I want you to walk away with something you can use tonight. So the back half is entirely practical, the specific fiber foods with the strongest research behind them, actual like gram counts. So you know what's worth your time. So three real meals you can build tonight and a 2 week plan that keeps your digestion comfortable the whole way. I mean, when you build muscle, right? I mean, look at the muscles in my shoulders and this is literally from eating protein. I had 2 chicken thighs for breakfast today, and I had breakfast at around 11 a.m. And then I had a little bit of some raspberries that I picked off of our deck. And then I had a little bit of some tomatoes that I also picked off our deck. So that I had some fiber from some fruits and veggies. So I want to clear up a few myths also on the way out, right? So that's what we're going to get into later on. So a quick note before we start is this episode is for education. It's not medical advice. So if you have diabetes or if you're managing a medical condition or you take medication that affects your blood sugar, talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian before making changes or reach out to me because I'm a registered nutritionist. So let's get into it. Let's start with the basics, and I promise to keep this science jargon free. Hunger is far more than a feeling you get when your stomach is empty. It's a hormone conversation happening between your gut, your fat cells, and your brain. Mostly, a little control center called the hypothalamus in your brain. So the first hormone to know is ghrelin. Ghrelin is made mostly in your stomach, and it's often nicknamed the hunger hormone because it's the one that rises before a meal and tells your brain, hey, it's time to eat. After you eat, ghrelin is supposed to drop. The second hormone is leptin. Leptin comes from your fat cells, and it's more of a long-term fullness signal. It tells your brain how much energy you've got in storage. Think of ghrelin as the short-term feed me, Seymour, feed me more, feed me now alarm. And leptin as the longer term, we're stocked up, no need to overeat signal. Then there are a couple of gut hormones that matter just as much, even though they get far less attention. So our bodies naturally make GLP-1. You've probably heard of that term recently because of the new weight loss medications, but your body actually makes its own GLP-1 every time you eat, especially when you eat fiber and protein. There's also the PYY, it's a peptide YY, and CCK, cholecystokinin. All three of these get released from your gut after a meal, and they all send "we're full," ease off signals up to the brain. So here's a simple model. Eating drops of ghrelin and eating drops ghrelin and raises your GLP-1, your PYY, and your CCK. And that combination is what makes you feel satisfied and stay satisfied. I mean, I ate, the chicken thighs and the raspberries and the tomato like 2 hours ago. And the only thing I am is thirsty because I haven't been drinking enough water. So the question for today is, which foods do that best? And the answer turns out to be beautifully specific. Let's follow that. Let's follow what happens when you eat something like white bread, a sugary cereal, a soda, a plate of white pasta, a bowl of SpaghettiOs, a muffin with gravy. The fast digestion, the low fiber carbohydrates, your body responds to these with real precision. And once you understand the sequence, the whole pattern makes a lot of sense. So these foods, they break down into glucose very quickly. Nutrition scientists actually have a scale for this called the glycemic index. You've probably heard of this before because it's all over anything that you follow that's health. And the glycemic index measures how fast a food spikes your blood sugar. You've probably seen these glucose monitors that people are wearing on their arms, or maybe they put it on their stomach. So which factors in how much carbohydrate is actually in the portion you ate? So refined grains, potato products, and added sugars sit at the high end of that scale. Non-starchy vegetables like legumes and whole intact grains sit comfortably at the low end. That's like broccoli and green beans, spinach, broccoli sprouts, cauliflower. So here's the part that surprises most people. A fast glucose spike prompts your pancreas to release a big burst of insulin to bring that sugar back down. And your pancreas is doing its job enthusiastically here. And when insulin arrives in force, it often overshoots. Your blood sugar lands below where it started. So researchers who study this, including physicians who write extensively on insulin and metabolic health, describe this as part of what's now called the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity. And obesity is an epidemic in the US today, and it's growing globally with all the fast food chains throughout the world causing obesity, these large corporations producing these high sugar content products, and now they're coming out with more garbage. Follow me on Facebook at Kim Larson or Larson Health Weight Loss, or follow me on Instagram at Larson HWL. It's amazing what you will find in the post that I gave you. So the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity, the idea is published in a peer-reviewed research, and that's a diet heavy in refined starches and added sugar, which drives repeated insulin spikes. And that pattern is linked to increased hunger and a greater tendency to store calories, especially as you get older. It's around your midsection, right? And that dip matters because your body reads a falling blood sugar level as a priority signal. So to eat, which is exactly the protective instinct that kept your ancestors alive. This is where ghrelin comes back into the story. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition tracked what happened to ghrelin after people drank a high sugar breakfast versus a complex carbohydrate breakfast. Ghrelin dropped after both, but the researchers found the change in ghrelin was strongly tied to the change in insulin and glucose. In plain terms, the gentler the glucose curve, the longer your hunger hormone stays quiet. I mean, it's amazing. There's also a mechanical piece to this, and it's elegant. The stomach has stretch receptors, little sensors in the stomach wall that send a "we're satisfied" signal through the vagus nerve to your brain. And the volume is what activates them. A big bowl of lentils and vegetables lights those receptors up beautifully. The same calories as a slice of white bread or a glass of juice occupy a fraction of the space. So refined carbs ask your body to do two hard things at once. Manage a steep glucose curve that brings ghrelin back early and register fullness from very little volume. That's the 90 minutes later pantry visit, fully explained. And the good news is that both of those levers are completely within your control, which is exactly where we're headed next. So, a word from our sponsor. This episode of Hunger Pains is brought to you by LarsonNutrition.com. Everything we just talked about, insulin, blood sugar swings, the hunger rebound, the metabolic health. And that's exactly what Kim Larson works on, myself, with my clients every day. Larson Nutrition has helped over 3,000 people reverse prediabetes, lower blood pressure, and improve their metabolic markers through medical nutrition therapy and weekly accountability coaching. I came to this the hard way. At 53, I went to my annual checkup and found I had gained 45 pounds and developed high triglycerides, high blood pressure, prediabetes. And instead of accepting medication as my only option, I reversed all three through targeted nutrition. And my husband became my first client. He lost 47 pounds because men always lose the weight faster, and reversed his metabolic syndrome in 4 months and got off his blood pressure medication. It starts with a free health assessment, your labs, your medications, your real schedule. And from there, you get a plan built around your metabolism and your real life. Then we'll have, food that you can buy and make that's easier to make right now. So go to LarsonNutrition.com to book your free assessment today. So why whole foods keep you full? For the good part, what is it about protein and healthy fats and fiber-rich carbohydrates that makes them so effective at keeping you satisfied for hours? Start with fiber. It's found in foods like lentils, broccoli, green beans, and other vegetables and legumes. Fiber does two jobs. First, the mechanical job we just talked about. It adds bulk, which stretches the stomach and triggers that "I'm full" nerve signal faster. Second, and this is the part that really surprised researchers, fiber gets fermented by the bacteria in your colon into compounds called short-chain fatty acids. And those short-chain fatty acids, acetate, propionate, and butyrate, if you want the names, actually bind to receptors on the cells lining your gut and trigger the release of GLP-1 and PYY, the same fullness hormones we talked about earlier. And a review published in the journal Frontiers in Endocrinology walked exactly through this. Fiber gets fermented. That fermentation produces short-chain fatty acids. And those short-chain fatty acids are one of the most potent natural triggers for your gut to release its own GLP-1. Other research published in the journal Diabetes showed the same short-chain fatty acids activate specific receptors. Scientists call those receptors FFAR2 and FFAR3. They're on the cells that release GLP-1. So fiber does far more than fill space. It chemically signals your body to feel full. It's amazing. This is exactly why a cup of lentils or a big serving of broccoli and green beans keeps you satisfied so much longer than an equivalent amount of calories from a white rice or crackers. That's a completely different hormonal cascade at work. So now let's talk about healthy fat, specifically the monounsaturated fats you get from avocado, extra virgin olive oil, nuts, and seeds. When it comes to hunger control, quality fat is one of your greatest allies, and the research on this is genuinely exciting. Now, people always talk about low fat, low fat, low fat. The problem with low fat is your body needs fat. Your brain is mostly made up of fat and water and cholesterol. Your joints are made up of fat and cholesterol. Your blood needs cholesterol. Like my LDL cholesterol is at like 250. And although it shows up as high, the only reason why it shows up as high was because before the pharmaceutical companies came along and said that, you need to have your cholesterol at 200, before they came along with statins, the number was at 300 and 300 was normal. And I am below 300. So don't believe this and don't get on statins if you're below 300 or if you're even at 300. Do not get on statins because once you're on statins, you are never going to get off of them. There's a randomized clinical trial out there from the Center of Nutrition Research at Illinois Institute of Technology, published in the journal Nutrients, that I think is one of the clearest demonstrations of this. Researchers had adults with overweight or obesity eat one of 3 breakfasts. One was a low-fat, low-fiber control meal, a meal with half an avocado or a meal with a whole avocado, all matched for total calories. Then they tracked hunger and hormones for 6 hours. The results were striking. The group that ate the whole avocado had a greater hunger suppression than the control group, and their blood test showed why. GLP-1 was about 17% higher, and PYY was about 21% higher compared to the low-fat controlled meal. Ghrelin, remember? That's the hunger hormone, stayed suppressed noticeably longer when the avocado was on the plate. One medium avocado brings around 13 grams of monounsaturated fat and 10 grams of fiber to the table. So you're getting that fat and fiber combination working together. The mechanism researchers point to is that fat and fiber both slow gastric emptying. Basically, they slow down how quickly food leaves your stomach, which delays the return of hunger and evens out the glucose and insulin response after the meal. Extra virgin olive oil, nuts, and seeds bring that same monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat profile, along with their own fiber and plant compounds. So the same basic mechanism applies. Now, not all fiber is created equal. So let's get specific, because eat more fiber is advice that becomes far more powerful the moment you know which fiber. Fiber is a whole category of compounds that behave very different in your body, and the research points clearly toward the winners. The fibers with the strongest, most consistent evidence behind them are the viscous gel-forming ones. Number 1 on that list is beta-glucan, which you get from oats and barley. It shows up over and over in satiety reviews and has its own meta-analysis looking at body weight and waist circumference. Now, not all oatmeal is created the same. You need to get an oatmeal that is organic, not with a bunch of sugars, not the packets that are filled with sugar and flavors and it's broken down. You need to get a whole oats, and preferably organic, because oats are filled with glyphosate, and glyphosate is a neurotoxin that causes cancer. It used to be called Agent Orange. And don't you all know what Agent Orange was? And don't you know what, Roundup, all that problem was? Well, they just keep changing the name of it and spraying everything with it. And this is the problem with, like, berries are high in toxins. Wheat is high in these toxins, and so is oats. So make sure that you get an organic whole oat or a steel cut oat. Try to get organic if you can. So second is guar gum. In one meta-analysis of randomized trials, guar gum had the single largest effect on how much people ate at the following meal, with beta glucan close behind. Third, rye, both rye bran and whole grain rye, which a systemic review published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition specifically flagged as more consistently linked to satiety than most other fiber types. And fourth, psyllium husk, which is that gel forming fiber you'll find in products like Metamucil. Then there are pulses. Pulses are lentils, chickpeas, black beans, split peas. These have their own meta-analysis in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition looking at body weight, and they're doing double duty because they bring meaningful protein along with fiber. You can actually get a whole grain rice, not this white rice, minute rice crap, but a whole grain rice. You can buy it at an organic store. You can get rice. You can get organic black beans. And that is a whole protein. Getting a whole grain rice and getting black beans and rice are a whole protein. So what do these all have in common? And that's if you can't afford to buy quality proteins. I'm just recommending that for people who are struggling financially. That is a great way to save money. Soak your beans overnight or cook them cook them at high heat in a big pot of water and then drain them. They'll be done if you boil them in some hot water, they'll be done in about an hour, maybe a half hour. So like the psyllium husk fiber, what these all have in common is they're viscous. They form a gel in the stomach. Compare that to the fiber in wheat bran or celery, which is mostly insoluble. Excellent for regularity and a different tool for a different job. So if hunger control is your goal, steer toward oats, barley, beans, lentils, and rye specifically. That precision is what makes the difference. Now, I want to give you the honest numbers because you deserve real expectations. That meta-analysis, that I talked about, I mentioned earlier. So 27 randomized trials, about 1,428 people, 12 weeks or longer of soluble fiber supplementation found an average weight difference of about 1.25 kilograms. That's roughly 2.75 pounds. That is real. And the researchers rated the certainty of that evidence as high. And it's a modest number. I'd rather you hear the honest figure from me. So here's where it gets interesting, though. Alongside that modest weight number, the same trials showed significant improvement in BMI, your waist circumference, fasting insulin, and insulin resistance. Those markers may matter more for your long-term health than what the scale says. 3 pounds is a small number. Meaningfully improved insulin sensitivity is a big factor. It's a big one here. So one more piece of context, because most of that supplementation research used isolated fiber, powders and capsules. The whole food evidence for satiety is strong, and the whole food weight loss trials are still catching up, mostly because they're harder to run. Think of the supplement research as proof the mechanism works and whole foods as the more sustainable, more enjoyable way to get there. Now let's talk about protein. Protein deserves a mention here too. Whole protein sources are consistently rated among the most filling foods per calorie in satiety research, partly because protein triggers CCK and GLP-1 release, and partly because it simply takes longer to digest than sugar or refined starch. The best thing you can do is pair protein with fiber and healthy fat, like salmon with lentils and olive oil, and stacking 3 separate fullness mechanisms in one meal. Have your salmon with lentils and broccoli, and put some olive oil on your salmon, your lentils, and your broccoli. And that is an amazing meal. You will be full for hours. Now, this episode is also brought to you by LarsonBotanicals.com. We've spent this episode talking about taking care of yourself from the inside, feeding your body well, giving it what it actually needs. Larson Botanicals is the same care turned outward. Your skin is the largest organ. It's your barrier. It holds your moisture in. It keeps irritants out, and it protects everything underneath. And it's working around the clock. When that barrier is healthy and well nourished, it does its job beautifully. So gentle, clean ingredients keep it strong so it can protect you the way it's meant to. Larson Botanicals makes small batch organic plant-based skincare designed to support that barrier rather than fight it. Gentle cleansers, nourishing serums and face creams, a barrier cream people swear by, balms, aluminum-free deodorants, and clean burning soy and coconut wax candles. And I'm going to get into beeswax soon. And these candles are scented with real organic essential oils. They're clean, simple ingredients you can actually pronounce. I created it after my own skin became reactive and after hearing the same story from women again and again. They're maybe after pregnancy or after hormonal changes, after menopause, their skin started suddenly, needed gentler care than it used to have. So nourish your body, nourish your skin. It's all one system. Visit LarsonBotanicals.com. All right, so let's get out of the lab and into your kitchen with actual food, actual numbers, and actual meals. The kind of specifics you can use in the grocery store tonight. First, a reference point. Most adults should be aiming for somewhere in the range of 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. I think the statistics right now are most people are getting about 10, 8 to 10, depending on body size and sex, of course, is where that 25 to 35 comes in. And the average American eats about 15. The gap between 15 and 30 is one of the biggest available wins in all of nutrition, and is completely reachable. Let's start with the foods that deliver the most fiber for the least effort. Split peas, about 16 grams of fiber in a single cooked cup. Lentils, about 15 grams a cup. Black beans, about 15 grams per cup. Chickpeas, about 12 grams. Navy beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, all in that same 11 to 15 gram range. Sit with that for a second. 1 cup of lentils gets you roughly half your daily fiber target. Just 1 cup of lentils also bring about 18 grams of protein. So you're stacking 2 satiety mechanisms in that one same spoonful. This is why the legume family shows up so consistently in the research. They're rich in exactly the viscous fermentable fiber that triggers the GLP-1 and PYY release we talked about. So if you take one thing from this entire episode, let it be this: adding 1 cup of beans or lentils to your day most days is probably the single highest leverage change most people can make for hunger control. It's cheap, it's shelf stable, and canned works fine, but it's better if you can buy the whole bean, put it in a big pot with a big, soak. Make sure that it's covered really well in water. Overnight, the beans will just soak up all that water, and then dump out the water, rinse them, and oh my goodness, they're so good. Put on some garlic, put on some black pepper. Yum. Oats. A cup of cooked oats gives you about 4 grams of fiber, so not a lot. And critically, a good chunk of that is beta glucan, the most studied satiety fiber we have. Steel cut and rolled oats are your best choices here because they're coarser. The texture digests more slowly than instant oats. And barley is the underrated one, about 6 grams of fiber per cooked cup. And it's even higher in beta glucan than oats. Barley deserves a comeback. It works beautifully in soups and as a rice substitute. Whole grain rye. If you can find real rye bread, look for the dense European style where rye leads the ingredient list. That's the rye that showed up in satiety research. Now, I want to talk about chia seeds. I love putting chia seeds in my breakfast in the morning or sprinkling it on my chicken. Add 10 grams of fiber in 2 tablespoons. Now I put a half an avocado, I put at least 2 tablespoons, maybe about 3 into my breakfast. I put a half a cup of cottage cheese, a half a cup of yogurt. I put in whatever organic berries we have, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries if I have them. And this all gives me plenty of protein, plenty of fiber, plenty of healthy fat. I mean, chia seeds with 10 grams from a spoonful, and chia seeds form that gel we've been talking about. You can literally watch it happen. If you stir chia seeds in water, you're going to see a big gel form. Same with flax seeds. Ground flax seeds, about 4 grams in 2 tablespoons, plus omega 3s. Both of these are almost effortless to add a spoonful into yogurt, oatmeal, a smoothie on top of a salad. Artichoke is a surprise champion here. A medium one has about 7 grams. Green peas, about 9 grams per cup. Broccoli, about 5 grams per cup cooked. Brussels sprouts, about 4. Green beans, about 4. Sweet potato with the skin on, about 4 grams. And keep that skin because a good share of the fiber lives right in the skin. On the fruit side, raspberries are the standout at about 8 grams a cup, which is remarkable for a fruit. Blackberries are very similar. A pear with the skin about 6 grams, an apple with the skin about 4. Avocado, as we discussed, has 10 grams for a whole avocado. And nuts, almonds, about 3.5 grams per ounce. Pistachios, about 3. Walnuts, about 2. Plus, they're the best nut source of plant omega 3s. So here's a change that requires you to buy absolutely nothing and eat exactly the same meal, just in a different order. It's called meal sequencing. You might have seen the Glucose Goddess. I don't know if you know who she is, but she talks about this meal sequencing, and it's about how you eat your food. So vegetables and fiber first, then protein and fat, and then carbohydrates last. This sounds almost too easy, and the data behind it is genuinely strong, right? So you see Europeans eating, we used to actually, when we grew up, we would have a salad first, then we would have our protein, and then we might have some mashed potatoes or something, right? But you eat your salad first, or whatever vegetables you have, if it's green beans or broccoli or cauliflower, whatever you like, eat those vegetables first. Then eat your protein, your chicken thighs, your chicken legs, your chicken breast, your salmon, uh, whatever protein you have. And then get your fat. So your extra virgin olive oil, sprinkle on some pumpkin seeds or some sunflower seeds for that healthy fat, and or some extra virgin olive oil. And then carbohydrates last. So get your lentils, get your black beans. This sounds almost too easy, right? And the data behind it is genuinely strong. There's a study published in Diabetes Care, which is the American Diabetes Association's journal, using continuous glucose monitors. Researchers found that eating fibrous vegetables and protein just 10 minutes before the carbohydrate portion of a meal produced flatter post-meal glucose spikes and steadier glucose for up to 3 hours. Are you kidding me? Up to 3 hours? Same food, same calories, just a different order of how you eat them. Another trial published in Frontiers in Nutrition looked at women with gestational diabetes, eating vegetables first, then your protein, then your carbs. They saw post-meal blood glucose improve by about 6% at both the 1 hour and 2 hour marks. And insulin improved by 8% at 1 hour and 11% at 2 hours. Compare that to regular eating pattern. 10% lower insulin for changing the order of your fork. That's a genuine free win, right? In practice, eat the salad before the bread. Eat the broccoli before the rice. If you're out to dinner, order the side salad and enjoy it while you wait. Skip the bread basket. Don't even tell them no thank you. Some meals come pre-mixed. a quinoa bowl, a bowl of chili, and those are wins on their own. Use food order whenever the plate makes it easy and let that be enough. So let me give you an actual plan because eat more fiber, right, becomes real the moment it turns into a specific behavior you can do on a specific day. So here's a specific version. Week 1, everything you love stays on the menu. Keep it all, keep it all. Your only job is to add 3 things because adding builds momentum and momentum is what makes this stick. Number 1, add a spoonful of chia or ground flax into whatever you already eat for breakfast. If that's yogurt, stir it in. If that's a smoothie, blend it in. If that's oatmeal, perfect. Just add that in. That's 4 to 10 grams of fiber before you've changed anything else. 2, beans or lentils in one meal a day. Throw in canned chickpeas, thrown into a salad, a can of black beans, stirred into whatever you're already making. Lentil soup for lunch. This is the single biggest lever and it takes about 90 seconds. 3, eat the vegetables on your plate first. Same food, same grocery list, simply a new order. Now, week 2, start swapping. Now that you've got momentum, swap rather than add. Instant oatmeal packets become steel cut or rolled oats. White rice becomes barley, or at least half and half while you get used to it. Chips as a side become a handful of nuts or a piece of fruit with the skin on. Juice becomes a whole piece of fruit. And here's the tip that makes the whole thing comfortable, and it's the one most people wish they'd heard first. Pace yourself. Your gut bacteria adapt beautifully to more fiber. They simply want a couple of weeks to do it. So ramp up gradually over 2 to 3 weeks and drink more water along the way. Since viscous fiber uses water to form that gel we've been talking about. Go at that pace and you'll feel great the entire time. So 3, real meals start to finish. So breakfast looks like plain Greek yogurt, not the kind with the fruit at the bottom. Add 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, a cup of raspberries, a handful of walnuts. That's roughly 20 grams of protein and around 20 grams of fiber in one bowl. And that takes 2 minutes to put together. You could even do it overnight. You can make your chia bowl. Just have it ready to go in the morning. Use a jar, right? Use a ball jar that you have. Put in your chia seeds. Put in your Greek yogurt. Put in your raspberries. Put in a handful of your nuts. And by the morning, your chia seeds will have absorbed some of that moisture. It's going to be nice and thick. And that roughly 20 grams of protein and fiber in one bowl in just 2 minutes that you did the night before, grab it and go in the morning. That combination will carry you comfortably to lunch. Now, lunch, a big salad with greens, whatever vegetables you like, with a cup of chickpeas, some grilled chicken or salmon, and a real dressing made with extra virgin olive oil and balsamic vinegar and some spices, or red wine vinegar and some spices, or apple cider vinegar, whatever you like for the vinegar. Add the vinegar, though. The vinegar is amazing for your body. Eat the greens and vegetables first, then eat your protein. Then, if there's bread, I hope you get rid of the bread because bread is so toxic in America, but that's fiber that, with the protein and quality fat all firing at once. So dinner would look like a piece of salmon or chicken, a big pile of roasted broccoli or Brussels sprouts, tossed in olive oil and barley, or a modest portion of whatever starch you like, eaten last. Maybe do, the salmon with a pile of broccoli, a cup of broccoli or Brussels sprouts soaked in olive oil, and then maybe do a sweet potato. I mean, that's amazing with the fiber and everything that you get. Eat half an avocado on the side if you want it. I mean, half an avocado is amazing. People used to say, my God, that's so much fat. But you need that fat for your brain. You need that fat for your joints. You got to lube up your joints. You got to lube up your brain. You got to keep your brain going. Notice that every one of these meals has carbohydrates in it, has bread or lentils or beans or oats, all still on the table and all still enjoyable. What changes is what sits next to the carbohydrate and what and when you eat it. That's the whole game. The 4-question plate check. Okay. If you remember nothing else, run this check before you eat. Where's my protein? Where's my fiber? Where's my quality fat? And am I eating the carbohydrate first or last? Eat it last. Okay. So where's my protein? Where's my fiber? Where's my fat? And eat the carbohydrate last. Vegetable, protein, fiber. If you can answer the first 3 and get the 4th one right most of the time, you have done the largest majority of what this entire body of research is telling us to do. Now let's do a rapid fire round before we wrap up. Myth 1, fruit juice is basically the same as eating fruit. Wrong. Here's the upgrade. Whole fruit keeps all its fiber, which means you get the stomach stretch signal and the short chain fatty acid benefits along with the sweetness. Hormonally speaking, whole fruit is a genuinely different and more powerful food than its juice. Myth 2, a calorie is a calorie. So none of this matters. Baloney. There's a real scientific debate here, and I want to be fair to it. With a pure energy balance standpoint, calorie in versus calorie out still governs weight change over time, and that's well established. But the carbohydrate insulin research we talked about earlier argues that different foods change your hunger, your energy expenditure, and how likely you are to overeat in the first place. So 2 meals with identical calories can leave you in very different places by dinner time. Most researchers today see it as both things being true at once. Energy balance sets the direction, and food quality strongly influences how easy or hard that balance is to maintain. So calories in and calories out is not true. Okay. So if you eat a lentil or if you eat a donut, those 2 calories are very different. If you were to eat as many lentils as that donut is, you will be so full and you'll never be able to finish all those lentils. Myth 3, healthy fat will make you gain weight because fat has more calories. Fat does not carry more calories per gram, and here's what that misses. Fat triggers such a strong fullness response. Remember that avocado study that people naturally eat more moderately at the next meal, which tends to balance the ledger? Nobody ever ate 4 avocados unless you were starving and so hungry, and that's the only thing you could eat. Because it's so full of healthy fats, it fills you up so fast. Myth 4, anything labeled low fat or diet is a smart choice. Wrong. Many of these products swap fat for refined starch or sugar to preserve flavor, which produces exactly the glucose curve we discussed at the top of the show. The move here is simple and empowering. Turn the package over and read the ingredient list. That one habit will upgrade your whole cart. So to bring it all together, hunger follows rules, and willpower has very little to do with it. It's hormones, ghrelin, leptin, GLP-1, PYY, and CCK, responding to what you actually put on your plate and pass through your lips. Protein, viscous fiber, and quality fats slow digestion, trigger your gut's own fullness hormones, and keep you comfortably satisfied for hours. Refined low fiber carbs move through much faster, which brings ghrelin back sooner. Once you know that, you get to choose your curve. I think about when I was, eating candy a lot, like during COVID and gained all that weight, right? It was Halloween and, you would just have like a couple pieces of candy, or maybe you'd have 5 pieces of candy. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm still hungry. That's those little sticker bars didn't satisfy me. So then you go back and you have like 5 more. And then you go off and you do some work, whatever. I'm still hungry. So then you go back and have 5 more. And it just keeps going and going because all the sugar and all the salt and all the highly processed garbage that's in those candies is just unreal. And the actions are genuinely simple. Get beans or lentils into one meal a day. Put a spoonful of chia or flax into your breakfast. Choose oats and barley over instant oats and white rice. Keep olive oil, nuts, seeds, and avocado in the rotation. Have the avocados in your fridge, or if they're not ripe enough, keep them on the counter until they're getting a little soft to the touch, then put them in the fridge. Eat your vegetables, then your protein before your carbohydrates. That one is free. And let me set honest expectations. The research shows modest weight changes and meaningful metabolic improvements, better insulin sensitivity, smaller waist circumference, steadier blood sugar. And here's what you'll actually feel within about a week: calm, predictable hunger that shows up on schedule. When hunger becomes predictable, every other healthy decision you're making gets easier. And that's the real leverage, and it arrives fast. So start with one thing: pick the beans or the chia or the food order, whichever one feels easiest, and let it become automatic before you add the next one. One habit at a time is how this sticks. Thanks again to our sponsors, LarsonNutrition.com. If you want help applying any of this to your own labs and your own life, the health assessment is free, and that's the place to start. And LarsonBotanicals.com for organic skincare and clean burning candles. Links to both. Well, I just told you about both. If this episode helped make sense of your own hunger patterns, please share it with someone who's always asking why they're starving an hour after lunch. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining.